Evan Hale didn't know it yet, but he had just signed his own sentence. From my office on the 52nd floor of Marquez Tower, I had watched him all week. Brilliant, meticulous, and annoyingly persistent, he had uncovered traces of the financial web I managed, the hidden transactions that funded the operations no one else dared acknowledge. In my world, knowledge was power, but curiosity was dangerous. Very dangerous. And Evan? He had both. I gave the order with a single gesture. My men moved swiftly, shadows within the city streets, and before he could comprehend the danger, Evan found himself surrounded. They didn't hesitate. He struggled briefly, typical of someone unprepared for the world he'd stumbled into, but it was meaningless. Within minutes, he was blindfolded and guided through the labyrinthine alleys of the city to a warehouse I owned on the outskirts. As I drove through the rain-slick streets later, I felt a flicker of anticipation. This was routine, capture, intimidation, neutralization. But something about him, something stubborn, calculating, and undeniably alive made me pause. The warehouse smelled of oil and metal, dimly lit by a single flickering overhead lamp. Evan sat on a chair, hands tied, eyes wide but not panicked. He had spunk, I admitted grudgingly. Some people would have cowered or screamed. He observed. He studied. That was rare, dangerous, attractive. I leaned against the cold steel beam framing the room, arms crossed, letting the tension hang. "You've been asking questions," I said, voice calm, measured. "Questions you shouldn't have. Do you know what that makes you?" His gaze didn't waver. He swallowed hard, but there was no fear in his eyes, only curiosity. "It makes me alive," he said softly. The words surprised me. He dared speak in my presence. Most would have shivered, begged for mercy. I tilted my head, considering him. A tiny, dangerous smile curled at the corner of my lips. Alive. Yes, that's exactly why I can't just let him go, or kill him. I circled him slowly, boots clicking against the concrete floor. "You know very little about the world you've stumbled into," I said. "And yet you came looking for the truth. Careless or brave. I can't decide which." He lifted his chin slightly, meeting my gaze. "Maybe both." I froze. That boldness, it was reckless, but it drew me in more than I expected. I had to remind myself why he was here. A liability, a threat, a loose end, and yet I didn't want to end him. I stopped pacing, leaning close so that he could see the sharp glint of steel gray in my eyes. "Do you know why most people fear me?" I asked. He blinked, shaking his head. "Because you're powerful? Because I am dangerous," I said softly, "and I make no apologies for it. People like you, curious, meddling, don't survive long in my world." A shiver ran through him, but it wasn't pure fear. Something more complex. Fascination. And maybe desire. My chest tightened at the thought. I hadn't felt this in years. A mix of possessiveness, curiosity, and an almost predatory attraction. I let the silence linger, studying him. "I could have you removed, completely, and no one would ever know. And yet," he whispered, voice trembling slightly, "you didn't." No answer came. My mind was too occupied with the thought of him here, defiant yet vulnerable. He was mine now, at least for tonight. I allowed him some freedom, untying his hands and letting him move within the warehouse. He rubbed his wrists, flexing them cautiously. I watched his every move. This was a test. His courage, his instinct, his usefulness, and my ability to resist him. "Why are you keeping me here?" he asked finally, voice low. "You could just, let me go." I stepped closer, letting the shadow fall over him. "And let you expose the world you've seen? No, you're valuable. Too valuable to waste, and too interesting to discard." His brows knitted in confusion. "Interesting. Yes," I said, voice low, almost a growl. "I've never met anyone like you. Smart, brave, reckless enough to peek into places they shouldn't. And yet, still alive. That makes you tempting." He swallowed, realizing the weight behind my words. My obsession was already beginning. Couldn't hide it, not entirely. He had no idea how much control I was about to claim over him. Hours passed in silence. We didn't speak much. I allowed him to explore the edges of the warehouse, watched him touch the furniture, walk slowly past the crates, analyze the space. He was cautious, polite, intelligent. Every careful step, every glance, fed my growing need to keep him safe. Not just from the world, but from me. Eventually, I spoke again. "You know," I said, leaning against the metal beam, letting my voice drift low and teasing, "I could have you bound indefinitely. You'd never see the outside world again. And yet, I'm not doing that." He looked up, eyes wide, voice shaky. Why are you keeping me alive?" "Because I needed him close. Because I wanted to see how far he would go. Because I couldn't destroy him, not yet. And because the truth was, I wanted to protect him. From the society, from the world, and yes, from the darker parts of myself." "You're dangerous," he said finally, a shiver in his tone. His lips parted slightly. That defiance, that curiosity, it made me want to bend all my rules for him. Finally, I made my decision. Couldn't kill him. Couldn't let him go. He had to be mine under my terms. I stepped close so that the heat of my body brushed against his. "I'm going to make you an offer," I said, letting the pause linger. "A deal. Your life, your safety. In exchange for loyalty, secrecy, and something else. You'll see me often, and you'll follow my rules. Break them, and you'll regret it. Keep them, and maybe you'll survive in ways no one else can imagine." He hesitated, fear and curiosity battling in his gaze. "And if I agree, then you'll live," I said, letting my voice drop to a whisper. "And maybe, just maybe, you'll learn how to survive in my world." A spark of hope flickered in his eyes. "And what about me?" I leaned closer, letting my hand hover near his shoulder, not touching but teasing. "You'll be under my protection. That's the promise." He swallowed, nodding slowly. That trust, fragile, naive, but utterly intoxicating, sealed the beginning of something neither of us could fully control. I stepped back, letting him breathe, observing him as the weight of the deal sank in. He was mine now, not yet fully claimed, not yet fully understood, but mine in ways that scared me more than I wanted to admit. Outside the warehouse, the city pulsed with life, oblivious to the dangerous game we had just begun. Inside, Evan Hale's life and his future hung on my promise, and I would keep it, even if it meant keeping him safe from the darkness within myself. The first morning was quiet, almost unnervingly so. Evan Hale woke on a simple mattress laid out in the corner of the warehouse I had designated as his safe house. He looked around, disoriented, eyes wide and alert. The sunlight streamed through the high windows, dust dancing in the rays, giving the place a surreal, almost peaceful glow. Too peaceful, I thought. The contrast between this calm and the world outside, the world he had just stumbled into, made my chest tighten. I observed him silently from the shadows of the mezzanine. He was alive, safe, for now. I descended the steel staircase with my usual grace, boots clicking against the metal. He flinched slightly, startled by my sudden presence. "You're awake," I said simply, voice calm but carrying an unspoken weight. "Good. I prefer my ward's conscious." Evan blinked at me, still processing. "Ward?" His voice wavered. You're keeping me here?" "Yes," I said, leaning casually against the wall, arms crossed, gaze fixed on him like a predator studying a new, dangerous curiosity. "I told you before, you're valuable. You've seen too much to be left to the mercy of others. You'll stay, you'll be protected, and you'll follow my rules." He swallowed hard. "Your rules? What does that mean?" I smirked slightly, letting my gaze linger. "It means you stay alive. It means you obey my instructions. And yes, it also means I get to decide what that looks like." He looked up at me, a flicker of defiance and fear in his eyes. The way he looked at me, I realized, was exactly how I liked it. Aware of danger, yet unwilling to back down completely. For the next few hours, I let him explore the space. I didn't touch him, didn't speak, only observed. I wanted to see how he moved, how he reacted. Curiosity and courage bled into every gesture. He studied the security measures I had placed. Cameras, motion detectors, hidden exits. My approval for his initiative grew. "You're thorough," I said eventually, letting my voice cut through the silence. He froze slightly, looking up at me. Most people wouldn't even notice half of this. He flushed lightly, a small smile breaking through. I like understanding things. I don't like feeling helpless." I stepped closer, letting my shadow fall across him. "You're learning quickly. That's good." My tone carried an edge, teasing, possessive, yet protective. "But don't think you understand me fully. You don't." The words lingered between us. He swallowed, and I saw the faint tremor in his hands. My chest tightened. Possessiveness? Perhaps. Fascination? Definitely. I had no intention of letting him out of my sight. Not until I decided it was safe. Not until I decided he belonged to me. Later, I watched him attempt to organize some supplies I had provided. Small gestures, insignificant to anyone else, told me more than words ever could. The way he adjusted the boxes, carefully checked the lock on the side door, double-checked the motion sensors, meticulous. Careful. Brave. I approached, stepping quietly behind him, letting my presence brush past his shoulder. He stiffened slightly, a reaction I relished. "You're very careful," I said softly. "I like that. It keeps you alive." I can handle myself," he said, turning his head just enough to meet my gaze. His eyes held defiance, curiosity, and something else. Something warmer. Something that made my chest tighten in ways I didn't expect. "You can," I admitted, leaning a fraction closer. "But not always. Not here. Not with the world you've stumbled into." The proximity between us crackled with tension. My mind told me to step back, to maintain control, but another part, far more dangerous, urged me closer. Possession, protectiveness, desire. I couldn't name it yet, but it had taken root. The hours passed in a blur of silent observation and minimal conversation. I tested him occasionally. Small hints of danger, whispers of threats outside the walls. Each time he reacted with courage and intelligence, never panic. It only drew me in further, feeding the growing obsession I refused to acknowledge. At one point, I allowed him to approach the control panel for the warehouse. His fingers hovered over the buttons, adjusting settings with precision. I stood behind him, letting him feel my presence without touching. "You're very good at this," I murmured. He looked up at me, surprised, a flush rising in his cheeks. I like figuring things out. I like understanding how things work." I didn't answer immediately. I let my gaze linger, the silence thick between us. "You're brave," I said finally, "and reckless. That combination is dangerous." His lips parted slightly, a soft intake of breath. The tension between fear, fascination, and desire was palpable. I could feel it in every small movement he made, in every glance he stole when he thought I wasn't looking. Dinner came next, simple and unremarkable, yet served in a way that reminded him he was under my roof and my control. He ate quietly, glancing up from time to time. I watched him, the faint flush of warmth coloring his cheeks, the way his fingers brushed over the plate absent-mindedly. "You eat like you're thinking about something else," I commented. My tone was teasing, sharp, yet protective. "I am," he admitted softly. "I'm thinking about what's happening, what I've stumbled into." "Good," I said, leaning slightly closer, so that the heat from my body grazed his. "You should always think. But remember," my voice dropped, almost a whisper, "thinking doesn't keep you alive. Following rules does." He shivered slightly, whether from the words or the closeness, I didn't know. I let it linger, watching as he tried to focus on his food. the flush on his neck undeniable. My chest tightened again. Possession, desire, protective instinct, dangerous instincts I had long believed controlled. Later, as the warehouse grew quiet, I allowed him a small corner to rest. I sat across the room, never breaking eye contact, letting him feel my presence without intrusion. "You'll stay here," I said softly, voice low, possessive. "You'll be safe. I'll make sure of it. For now, you'll follow my rules. You'll remain under my watch. And one day," I let the words hang, "one day, I may let you step into the world outside again." He blinked at me, curiosity and fear warring in his expression. "And if I refuse?" I smirked, a dangerous curl of the lips. "You won't. Not fully. Not when you realize how fragile your life is compared to the one I can offer. Protection and survival." He swallowed, nodding slowly. That subtle acceptance, the realization that his life was in my hands, sent a shiver of possessive satisfaction through me. Before the night ended, I allowed a moment I hadn't intended. I stepped close to him, letting the warmth of my presence brush against his arm. His body reacted subtly, tense yet curious. "Do you trust me?" I asked softly. Evan hesitated, gaze flickering to mine. I don't have a choice, do I?" I let a small, teasing smile play on my lips. "Perhaps not, but the choice to survive, that's yours. And if you follow my rules, you'll live. And maybe—" I let the words trail, letting my gaze linger on him, the tension between us crackling like electricity. "You'll learn what it means to be protected." He swallowed again, lips parted slightly, eyes wide. That fragile mixture of fear, trust, and unspoken curiosity made my chest tighten. I realized then that the rules weren't the only thing between us. There was something else. Something dangerous, obsessive, and possessive growing. Something I wouldn't deny for long. The city outside was unaware, glowing and chaotic, oblivious to the new alliance forged in the shadows. Evan Hale was mine now. Not fully claimed, not fully understood, but mine to protect and mine to possess. And I would keep him safe, even from the darkness within myself. Evan Hale had been unusually quiet today. I noticed it immediately. He wasn't restless or fidgety, as he usually was when he moved around the warehouse or examined the security systems I allowed him access to. No, today, he sat at the small desk in the corner, papers and spreadsheets spread before him, fingers tracing numbers and names with a focus that bordered on obsession. Curiosity pulled me toward him. "What are you looking at?" I asked, my voice calm, neutral, though there was an edge beneath it, a warning not to lie. He flinched slightly, blinking up at me, but his expression quickly settled into that determined, unwavering focus I'd come to recognize. I'm trying to understand the system, the financial web, the people behind it. I just need to see the bigger picture." I studied him carefully. Beneath the surface of intelligence, methodical thought, and bravery, there was something more, something personal, a spark of raw emotion that he wasn't showing me. But I could see it in the slight tremor of his hands, the tight set of his jaw. "You're digging deeper than you should?" I said softly, stepping closer. "And you know it. I have to," he murmured almost too quietly. "I need to understand. Why my parents?" He stopped suddenly, as if realizing he'd spoken too much. His fingers froze mid-air. I didn't say anything, letting him hesitate. My mind immediately worked. He's connected to this world in a way he doesn't realize. My chest tightened, and a cold, unpleasant weight settled in my stomach. Later, while reviewing the security footage of his earlier movements in the warehouse, I cross-referenced the names he had written down. That was when I saw it, his parents. Not just ordinary business people, they were significant, powerful figures who had once crossed paths with me in the corporate world. And worse, their downfall had been partly my doing. The memory hit me like a physical blow. Years ago, during a high-stakes deal gone wrong, their company had collapsed. My company's actions, my decisions, had played a role in the financial ruin that ultimately led them to despair, perhaps even to the final act of self-destruction that ended their lives. Evan Hale, His parents were my doing. My hands clenched into fists. Rage, guilt, and something far more dangerous surged through me. The boy sitting quietly at the desk, unaware of my thoughts, unaware that the man in front of him had been responsible for his parents' demise. And yet, I could not let him go. I stepped closer, letting my shadow fall over him, watching his careful movements. "You've been busy," I said, voice low, controlled. "Seems like you're not just looking at numbers. You're trying to find answers." He froze, blinking at me. I need to know. I need to understand why everything went wrong, why they—" He paused, voice trembling slightly, gaze flicking up at mine, searching for something in my expression. I didn't answer. Couldn't. Not yet. Not while my obsession and guilt warred with the need to control him, to keep him alive and close. Instead, I leaned casually against the desk, letting him feel my presence, heavy and imposing. "Answers are dangerous," I said softly. "Sometimes knowing too much can get you killed." He swallowed, glancing at the papers and numbers with renewed determination. "I don't care. I have to know. I can't just let it go." I let the words hang. There it was again, that reckless bravery, that stubborn spark that made me want to protect him, keep him close, and claim him in ways I wouldn't admit even to myself. Hours passed in near silence, broken only by the soft scratching of pencil on paper and the faint hum of electronics. I observed him from across the room, noting the way he furrowed his brow, the way his hands occasionally trembled when a thought struck too close to home. He was fighting his own grief, and I knew, somehow, that the anger and frustration he carried were aimed at the world he had stumbled into, and yet unknowingly at me. I caught myself leaning closer than necessary more than once, letting my presence brush against him in moments that could be mistaken for accident. His reactions were subtle but noticeable. A quick intake of breath, a faint flush across his cheeks, a subtle shift of weight away from me, and yet never fully away. Possessive instinct flared within me. I wasn't going to let him out of my sight. Not tonight, not ever. That night, as he tried to rest in the small cot I had provided, I approached him quietly. The warehouse was silent except for the distant hum of the city and the occasional creak of steel. He looked up at me, eyes wide and uncertain, as I leaned against the doorway. "You're still thinking about it?" I said softly. "The past. Your parents." He nodded slowly, voice low. "I have to. I can't move forward until I know why. Why everything happened." I let my gaze linger, dark and unreadable. My chest tightened. He had no idea that I knew, that I was the reason he carried this pain, this burden. I would never tell him. Not now. Not ever, at least not until I decided the moment was right. "You're not going anywhere," I said finally, almost a growl. "Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not until I say." He looked confused, slightly frightened, but he didn't argue. That made my chest tighten further. Possession, obsession, protectiveness. Dangerous instincts I had thought long buried. Days passed in this tense, careful routine. Evan continued his research, piecing together the puzzle of the secret society's finances, unaware of my full knowledge of his past. I watched every movement, every glance, every hesitant approach toward the truth. I teased him lightly at times, letting my presence brush against his arm when he wasn't expecting it, leaning too close when I explained security details, whispering warnings just above audibility. He flinched occasionally, shivered at my tone, and my chest clenched with that dangerous, possessive thrill. "You're relentless," he said one night, voice low, almost shy as he adjusted a security panel. "I don't tolerate failure," I murmured, leaning close enough that he could feel the warmth of my breath. "And I don't let anyone, especially you, wander into danger." He swallowed hard, eyes flicking to mine, and I saw the faint blush creeping across his cheeks. I let the moment stretch, dangerous, charged, teasing, but never crossing the line. Not yet. Then came the night that changed everything. He was poring over old transaction records when I realized that one entry, one moment in the past, linked directly to the event that had destroyed his family. I didn't speak immediately, I wanted him to continue, unaware of what I knew. I wanted to feel the tension, the obsession, the protective instinct that flared every time I watched him inch closer to the truth. He looked up at me suddenly. "Do you know about this?" he asked quietly, holding the ledger close. One evening, as a storm raged outside, I pulled him close while we reviewed a ledger. The rain tapped against the roof, creating a rhythm that matched the quickening of our hearts. His breath hitched slightly when I leaned close enough to whisper, "You belong with me now, and I'll protect you always." He didn't pull away. Instead, he looked up at me, lips parted slightly, eyes wide, and I knew he was feeling it too. That fragile, dangerous connection that had been building for weeks now flared with intensity. I brushed my lips against his once more, gentle, teasing, enough to make him shiver. "Do you feel it?" I whispered. "Yes," he breathed, voice trembling. I feel it." The storm outside roared, but inside, in that warehouse, it was quiet, except for the rapid beating of two hearts, locked in a dangerous, possessive, intoxicating connection. And for the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a future, not just of protection and secrecy, but of something far more dangerous and thrilling. Love. The gala was alive with glittering lights, murmurs, and the subtle clinking of champagne glasses. Every step we took through the marble floors, every smile we forced for the cameras, felt like walking a tightrope over a pit of vipers. Evan was beside me, his hand brushing occasionally against mine in that careful, hesitant way he always did when tension ran high. I could feel his unease, his subtle anxiety, and part of me wanted to grab him and never let go. But I had to be careful. Every move was observed, every word weighed. I knew the rival faction would strike tonight. They had been watching, waiting for the perfect moment to fracture us, to exploit the truth I had kept from him. I could sense it in the way they glanced toward us, in the tight lines of their jaws, the calculating glances. The first hour passed with no incident. We smiled, nodded, shook hands, and laughed when expected. I stayed close to Evan, letting him lean slightly on me at moments, subtly asserting my presence without overtly touching him. But beneath the surface, tension coiled like a serpent. And then it happened. A rival cornered Evan near the balcony, just a whisper from me. He leaned slightly closer, voice smooth but venomous. "You're quite the clever boy, Hale," he said. "But do you know what he's really done? The truth about your parents, your life." Evan stiffened, the air between them charged. I don't." I stepped forward, gaze sharp. "Stay away from him," I murmured, low and dangerous. The man smirked. "Oh, he deserves to know that you keep secrets from him. His parents, the way they died, he have a right to be angry." Time slowed. The world shrank to just him and me. Evan's eyes widened, his lips parting slightly. The faintest tremor ran through his hands. You knew," he whispered. "You, Dante?" I didn't answer immediately. Words were dangerous here. One misstep and I could lose him entirely. "Your parents knew the risks," I said finally, carefully, softly. "They entered this world willingly. I kept the truth from you to protect you." "No," he snapped, shaking his head, voice sharp and raw. How could you keep this from me?" "From me? I did it to keep you alive," I said, stepping closer, feeling the pull, the tension of his anger like a live wire. "Not to hurt you." Evan's face twisted in a mix of betrayal and heartbreak. He pivoted abruptly and started to walk away, away from me, away from the room, away from the gala that had suddenly felt like a cage. "Evan?" I called, voice cracking with desperation I couldn't hide. "You're not leaving." He paused, hand on the doorknob. I can't face you right now. I hate you." I followed him swiftly. "You will not leave," I said, voice low, possessive. "Not tonight. Not ever." Before he could respond, I guided him gently but firmly into my car. The drive to my house was quiet, tense. Neither of us spoke, but the air between us was thick with unspoken words, anger, and the ache of betrayal. By the time we arrived at my estate, night had fallen, casting long shadows across the grand hall. I led him to the suite I had prepared, comfortable but secure, a place where no one could intrude. I locked the door gently behind us. Days passed. Evan refused to speak. He moved through the house like a ghost, his gaze distant, his emotions hidden behind walls I couldn't break. And I was shattered. Every glance at him, every breath he took away from me, stabbed at my chest. Yet my possessiveness, my obsession with keeping him safe, didn't waver. I watched over him, silently, letting him have space, yet never allowing him truly out of my sight. I caught him from across the room, following him subtly, leaving small notes or gestures of comfort that he ignored. He sat by the window one afternoon, staring at the rain cascading down the glass. I approached quietly. "Evan," I murmured. No response. I sat across from him. "I won't let you go. You're mine, and I will protect you. Always." He didn't turn. You can't make me forgive you," he said quietly. "Not yet. Maybe never." A week passed like this. Heartbreak, tension, and silent longing filled the house. Every near touch, every accidental brush of our fingers, every glance carried weight, charged with electricity. Finally, one evening, Evan spoke. His voice was quiet, fragile, hesitant. "Why did you hide the truth?" he asked, eyes avoiding mine. I leaned closer, softening my voice. "Because I love you. Because I couldn't bear to lose you. Not to the world. Not to the rivals, not even to yourself. And because I couldn't forgive myself if anything happened to you." He finally met my eyes, the anger still there but softened by confusion and pain. I know my parents accepted the risks. I was just looking for someone to blame. And you became the easiest target." The words hit me like a blade. Anger, possessiveness, heartbreak, and relief all collided inside me. "Evan," I breathed. He flinched slightly at my tone, unsure. I don't know if I can ever trust you again," he admitted. "I don't expect you to," I said softly, reaching out to gently hold his face. "I only ask that you let me love you, even if it takes time, even if you hate me a little. You're mine, and I won't let anyone harm you. Not ever." The moment between us was electric. I leaned closer, letting my lips brush his. He didn't pull away. Instead, he let himself feel it, the tension, the longing, the quiet promise of possession and protection. We kissed slowly, tenderly at first, testing the fragile boundary of our emotions. His hands came up to my chest, gripping lightly, anchoring himself as I deepened the kiss just slightly. Still YouTube-friendly, still soft, but full of unspoken passion. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine, breathless. I don't want to hate you," he whispered. "You don't have to," I said, soft but possessive. "I'm not going anywhere. You're mine, and I will protect you always." The storm outside mirrored the storm between us. Angst, passion, longing, and the promise of something dangerous and beautiful. Even though the rivals still lurked, even though secrets remained, even though trust had to be rebuilt, I knew one thing. Evan and I were bound together now, by protection, possession, and love, and I would never let him go.